Hi everyone, this is Alex with Core One, and today we're going to talk about another common mistake that we see when invoices are submitted, and that is when multiple invoices are submitted for one course instead of one consolidated invoice. What I mean by this is that you should be submitting only one invoice for each course or exercise that you support. So that means all of your individual expenses from a course go into one invoice. So your labor, per diem, lodging, flight, any expenses that you have that are related to your support of an exercise or course need to be submitted under one invoice. So today in this video, we're going to briefly cover two topics. The first is how the issue of submitting multiple invoices occurs. And the second is how to consolidate your invoices if you do have multiple invoices submitted into one invoice and how to resubmit that. Beginning with the cause of the issue, there are likely two reasons as to why you've submitted multiple invoices. The first is that you're using the mobile app version of Expensify, either on a smartphone or a tablet. The mobile app sometimes automatically submits individual expenses for you. So that's one possible reason. For example, if you're working on your labor, you enter your labor and you hit save, it'll automatically submit your labor expense before you can go on and fill in the rest of your expenses. To avoid this issue, we'd recommend that you use the online version of Expensify, either on your desktop or a laptop. It's much easier to use and it will avoid this specific problem. And the second cause is when you are creating a expense on the web version, like I am right now, and you open up a new expense, at the bottom you'll see the report field, and you always want to make sure that the none is selected instead of new. So let's just do a test right now, and I'm logging my labor. I'd fill out all this information. I want to select none. And so I'll show you the difference. If I hit save, I have to put in a total. Let's just say 100. If I hit save, labor will come right here. And if I do another report, let's just say airfare 200. And again, you'd want to fill this out better than I'm doing right now, but you'd hit none, save. That way, after you've logged all your expenses, you can go in and you can select them and click add to report, and you would click new report. So let's say I do that right now. I go to my report section, I open up my report, and both expenses are in there. You would have more expenses than I do right now, but that's what we're talking about in terms of a consolidated report that has all of your individual expenses in there. And the difference, if I hit new, so let's go back and just to show you, if I hit new, saved, and airfare, if I hit new, and then if we go back to the report section, you'll see that I now have multiple reports, and this report only has my labor, and this report only has my airfare. So that's an issue we want to avoid. And so how you do that is you go and you always make sure that you have none. So that way you can group all of your individual expenses together and make sure that they are consolidated under one report, such as this. You see, it has my airfare, my labor. It would have more expenses than that. So this is what we're talking about in terms of a consolidated report. Okay, so moving along now in terms of how to consolidate your reports if you have multiple reports submitted. If you're watching this video, your invoices have either been rejected or you have submitted multiple invoices and been instructed to resubmit one consolidated report. If your reports have been rejected, then your reports are in open status and you will not have to do anything to edit your reports. If your reports are still submitted, then you will have to go through each of your reports and hit undo submit on them. So for instance, I have 4 reports right here in my report section that are processing. That means they are submitted. But to edit them, if I go in and try to edit them, I can't do anything. And I'm going to need to edit all 4 of these to make sure that they go into one invoice. So what you do is you have to hit undo submit for each invoice. So you do that by opening up your invoice, and in the top left-hand corner, you can hit undo submit. This will withdraw your invoice and put it into open status. And all that means is that you can go in and edit your report. So I'm going to do that for all 4 of my reports. Real quick. And so that just means all 4 of my reports / invoices and the expenses in them are now editable, and I can start to consolidate them into one report. There are a few ways to go about consolidating a report, but I think the easiest way is just to pick one of your invoices and add the remaining expenses in the different invoices to that one invoice. So for example, I'm going to pick invoice number 604256550 worth $1,000. And an easy trick is just to remember the last 2 or 3 digits of the invoice that you want to consolidate your invoices into. So I'm going to remember the number 50 because I want all my expenses to feed into this report. And so I'll show you why that's relevant in a second. So what you're going to do now is you're going to start going into all the reports that you want to move your expenses from. So I'm just going to start at the top. I'm going to open up the expense. Then I'm going to open up the individual expense. And if you remember, every single expense has a report field. And so I want to move this individual expense from this report to the report that I'm going to try to consolidate all my individual expenses into. So, and the reason, remember, I said to remember the last 2 or 3 digits of an invoice is the number 50. I see the number 50 right here. And I'm going to, by selecting that and hitting save, it moved the expense from this report now into this report. So you can see that the mileage is now there along with my lodging. And so I'm going to do that for the remaining 2. This is my labor, and I want to move it to the other invoice with the other expenses, remembering the report number ends in 50. I'm just going to select that, hit save. Now that expense is gone and this invoice is empty. I'm going to go back to my report section, and you can see that these invoices are now worth 0 because they don't have anything in them. I have one more to do. I'm going to open up that individual expense and do the same thing. Go to the report, remembering the number 50, click that, save. And so if you do this correctly, all of your expenses should be under one report, and the other invoices that you had previously submitted should all be worth 0. So I'm going to open up my invoice, make sure that the 4 items I had, my labor, my parking, my POV mileage, and my lodging are all in this report, which they are. Everything looks good to me. And I'm going to go ahead and submit this report. It's processing. That means it's been submitted correctly. And I'm going to go back up here. You don't have to do this. I just like doing it to make my report section a bit cleaner. I'm going to select the old reports that I had submitted that have nothing in them anymore, and I'm going to delete them. And now I'm left with my one consolidated report that has my 4 individual expenses in here. And this allows our accountants just an easier workflow of processing your invoice and getting it back to you sooner rather than later. So thank you for watching this video, and I hope this helps in learning how to consolidate multiple invoices into one.